Hello and welcome to the 16th episode of Real Talk with the Unicorn. My name is Tatiana and I'm recruiter in supply chain and logistics. My today's guest is Dr. Alauddin Ahmed, managing consultant at Valueinfinity. The goal of Valueinfinity is to help organizations generate value quickly with long-lasting results through transformation and change. Welcome to the show, Dr. Alauddin Ahmed. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be with you.
Yes, it's my pleasure. The first question I want to start with, and this is our second conversation. So guys, if you are interested in exploring the previous one, the link is under this video. So I want to start with the transformation and change. When you say that change management, what type of change do you normally refer to? Is it technology, new leadership, restructure? What is the most frequent case in Valueinfinity?
Well, any change that starts with an intent or purpose, that's what we will call a transformation with a purpose. So all the points that you mentioned, they are contributing to the change. So they could be used as a lever. So I would give you an example that a company can be on a growth path and want to grow the team, grow the organization. In that case, growing the people, growing the team, building the capability, building a high-performance team could be a journey for the change. Then there could be situations where you are trying to improve the process as you are growing. You are trying to improve the process through operational excellence, and because you don't want to grow with the existing problems, right? So you want to bring in the new way of work, excellence in your business process, and all. So that could be, a process-centric, operation excellence as a theme for changes. The last thing that you talked about, that technologies, it's a digital transformation. It's a catalyst. You want to bring in technology either to enable a new business model, or you allow people to do more value-added work and take out time. Give them more efficiency so that they can spend more time on the value-added task. So you can have, in a different way, growth-related, operation excellence, or you can have, technology that will actually, enable a change. But the key point is that the change has to be associated with a purpose, a good intent, and it needs to be described with all the levers that we talked about. Described as a part of a vision. So this is the purpose of our organization. This is the purpose of our team. This is the organizational purpose. And this is the direction we're going, which is outlined as a vision, because that vision, that futuristic view will inspire the people. And then you go along and you leverage those, process or technology, or even leadership change. Leverage those moments for bringing in change in your organization. Many a times when the new leader comes in, it's an opportunity, it's fresh air to the organization. So you can see that new perspective, and then the leader can look at what has happened in the past, what brought the team in this place to begin with. What are their successes? What are their strengths? And then you want to build on them, right? Build on it and see where the future is going, and build in extra capability in the organization. So when the leader changes, it's an opportunity to look at things from a different angle, and then bring those perspectives and help the existing team to build and move on or grow their team for the future. So I would say that these are the types of changes that we see, and we come across and help our customer organization to achieve those changes.
And when you mentioned that all of those aspects can be the reason why organizations reach out to you and ask for your input and help to get them through those transformational processes, I find that implementing new technology will probably be the most obvious one for those leaders who want to keep up with the market, with the pace of the market. What industries do you work with the most these days? What industries do you prefer to work with, and why?
Okay. Of course, the industries that we work with, it's associated with our experience. So I have actually grown up in the manufacturing industry and industrial machinery, and then where we spend most of our time is either they're associated with the energy industry, that large heavy equipments are being used as infrastructure, and then there are a nature of decisions that are taken. There are with mission critical machines, etc. So that's one space, and I would say that operations and supply chain is our functional domain where we bring in a lot of value. And in terms of industry, it's any manufacturing, energy related industry is somewhere that we do add value a lot of. Last 25 years we have been working in those industries, and supply chain and operations are the core focus of our functional capability.
That's amazing. And Dr. Alauddin, when you go to those initial meetings and you do your assessment, oftentimes, especially right now when economy is relatively slow, we are not in the position of picking and choosing who we will work with and who we have to decline. How often do you face the situation where you choose not to work with this particular client, and why? Maybe you have a list of your own reasons why with this company or with this team change won't be successful. If you do that, if you don't, then
yeah. So that's a very interesting question. Every change has its level of difficulties associated with it, right? So we want to be successful with our customer. So when we first engage with it in a conversation, we want to understand what's the nature of change that the customer wants to make, needs to make, and the person, our leader that we are talking to, what's his or her influence there. Okay, so if we are talking about a change that is completely out of our influence circle, then there's no point of talking about it, or no point of launching that change journey. We would rather encourage the leader to incorporate or involve the people who are required to be in the influence circle. So that's point number one. And the second point is in terms of their company culture, leadership style. Do they demonstrate the certain aspects of the commitment, certain aspects of authenticity to bring in those changes to enable it, because it's an investment from both sides, right? And we don't want to get into a situation where we're starting. However, very quickly the results are not being achieved. So in a different way, I would say that, so those are our qualification criteria, but where we want to really go is where the different mindset, right? Leaders or organization, it's kind of always a culture of trying new things. It's a growth mind, I would call it, where the leaders that we are talking to, they know what they are doing. They do well, but they want to do better. And they see everything in a positive way as an opportunity. All challenges are as an opportunity to grow or to do better. So that's how I see that growth minded. And you can feel that the leaders are having that passion for building a high performance team. So that resonates with us a lot, right? No matter what the current situation is, if the leader can articulate or very anxious about future, very anxious about his or her team, very anxious about, they love more questions than answers. then it resonates so much with us that, okay, this is the company, this is the place for us to really work together. We want to discover things together and find a path forward.
Yeah, because that's a shared responsibility. The result depends on both sides. Some changes, no matter what you say or do, if the other party is not supportive, the case may be absolutely hopeless. And I know that with experience, sometimes whatever took us years to figure out, now we can see within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation, because we develop our personal red flags. And for those candidates, for high performers that you select, you help your clients select for your team, what are they specifically looking for in the new culture? Maybe something that if a candidate is asking questions during the interview about the culture and wants to explore the culture, what would be the right things to ask about?
Let me understand your question, Beverly. The question for us to ask, what's their culture?
For example, if a candidate goes for an interview and he or she wants to explore the culture of this organization, what should they ask? Maybe even red flags that indicate toxic work culture, things that should warn them at the very beginning that do not go there, or
Absolutely. Oh, you're talking about a candidate.
Yes. Sorry.
No, I would say, what's straightforward. Ask that question. What's the company culture? The moment they start answering that question, that our culture is like this, you will feel, right? It will have to come up with a lot of energy. It will have to come up with a lot of authenticity. You can see when you look at their eyes when they're talking about the culture, how much they are into that, right? Into that culture. Some companies will have values, some companies will have culture, but there are 4 or 5 key points that a company will try to communicate and disseminate that information and really cultivate that culture, right? So the moment I would suggest that straight away ask that. Okay, we do ask it when what's the culture like, right? And especially it's very interesting when we talk to a potential client or leader that tell us about your company culture. And depending on how long that person has been in the organization, right? There is definitely an association with the culture and the way he or she will articulate that. That gives us a perspective of how the culture is living in the organization. You know what I mean? Whether it's written on paper, book, versus it is alive, in the organization. So I would always suggest that ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me an example of a culture that impressed you recently and why? Something maybe special that the company was doing that you thought, wow, that's a great idea that they do that. Maybe especially in the remote work environment, something that resonated with you.
Yeah, so I would say even before pandemic, there were conversations that we were having with senior executives. Executives were very anxious about creating an environment for trust. Mm-hmm. When a person in a global environment, right? So where today we are talking about remote work, but for a global organization, remote was always there, mm-hmm. right? You're talking to a person. We were working with companies in USA. I'm not from Mississauga. I'm not traveling there all the time, right? So that is there, and global organization can have their R&D center in Europe, customers in USA, and then manufacturing in China. So it's all over, right? So there is a significant part of the business that is done, or communication that is done remotely, even before pandemic. During pandemic, it was, I would say, office environment. Every office had its own split, right? And it's a mix of that. So even in that environment, if I go back to that, in conferences, the talks, that used to really encourage me is that when executives saying that I'm anxious about how to build that trust or how to enhance that trust. Okay. And it's a continuous thing. It's not that I have trust in my team, in my organization, and that's it. You don't have to work on it anymore. It's a continuous journey you have to work on. So when people are talking about trust, I had very interesting conversation 2 years back with an executive in USA. His terminology was safe. How do I create a safe environment in the organization that people make mistakes? Mm-hmm. And then feel comfortable about it, or feel comfortable to talk about it. It's not that I'm making mistake again and again because of my incompetency. I'm not being careful enough, but it's that comfortness that if I make mistake because I tried something new, it's okay. And then I'm encouraged to talk about it. I'm encouraged to take those risks and be open about it. Hey, you know what? I tried these things and it didn't work. If you're trying this, please take care of these points that I want to make sure that you don't make that mistakes. At the same time, you can be curious that did I make any mistake? Did I know if I do it second time, is there any suggestions that? So that safe environment when an executive, a leader is talking about, you feel that he's talking about high performance team. He's talking about, when they're talking about trust, they're talking about high performance team. And that this notion of trust and safety, feeling safe, it came to me, I would say almost 15 years back when I was taking a high performance leadership training with George. He was a great negotiator, hostess negotiator. And he brought the perspective of a high performance leadership. A high performance team is all about emotion. It's not about logic.
Emotion.
It's all about emotion, emotional challenges that you're facing. So it's all about emotional intelligence where people would love to give their best to do the best, or it's not defined. This is my expected level. You perform it at this level. No, because we do not know the potential of a high-performing team. You just let them do. You give them path, you give them right tool, you give them purpose, and then you will see surprises coming from them. So traditional performance management is not really always for high performance. It's high performing team. Yes, you will have average 80% achievement, a certain score. But if you want to really create the culture of high performance, you need to go beyond that. And there are certain things that they're not tangible in numbers. Trust, you cannot measure. Safety, you cannot measure. Safety, when I mean safety, when I talk about safety, I'm talking about environmental safety or feeling safe within the organization. It's not okay. Did I drop a tool on the floor? And not that safety. It's about feeling safe. Those are not necessarily measurable. But you have to have some soft aspects of measuring signals, etc. Then you get that potential really open for high performing.
I'm really glad you said that, because when we say high performers, we tend to focus on the word performers. The typical association is that these people who go above and beyond their KPIs, who succeed in the measurable aspect of work. However, high performers are the ones who bring organization to the next level through creativity, through trying new things. And if environment is not safe, as you said, for making mistakes, then it actually becomes toxic for those top performers, because they feel limited to the certain functions that they are expected to perform. And that's, I think, is important to understand for all leaders, that if you let your team try new things, they have to feel safe, but at the same time, you have to be open to uncertainty. Because those new things, you never know where they can take your organization, correct?
Yes, you bring a very, very interesting point. The uncertainty has become a new management word, most recently, volatility and all. But again, we are learning or relearning things when the supply chain became global. I'm talking about 1980s, 85, we started uncertainty. Uncertainty has been part of our life all the time, right? Most of the time, we probably didn't know about it. It was kind of unknown. We felt that it is unknown. However, as your supply chain is getting spread globally, uncertainty is part of your game, part of your business. So very interestingly, in around 2000, when large corporation asked us, what's the future talent that we'll be looking for? What are the attributes that we'll be looking for? And in those days, in 2000, I would say, it was very common to go for straightaway leadership assessment, right? Okay, this person is visionary, this person is influential, he can influence the team, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a leadership training, there is a leadership political development process, and then leadership assessment. So we were asked by the customer that you tell us that what's the type of talent that we need to look for, and then how do we also identify the hidden talent that will take us to the next level, right? Especially for large organizations, hidden talent are truly hidden, right? So there needs to be certain mechanism or process to really identify them and then give them the right opportunities so that they're set up for success and et cetera, the path forward. We brought in the concept concept of managing uncertainty as a special or unpacked it for assessing the talent, and then give them the room or give environment for testing those uncertainty or testing in those uncertain environment and proving themselves so that they're ready for future leadership. And we developed lots of questions at that time. How do you really respond to an uncertain situation? Even simple things like ambiguous. We talk a lot about ambiguous situation, and we need to be able to handle ambiguity, right? So if certain situations was not really clearly explained to you, the team member, and how did you respond to it? And did you develop your own hypothesis? Did you develop your own assumptions? Or did you really experiment those things? Certain things that you would do in R&D facilities, but when it becomes your day-to-day business, then how do you really respond to those uncertain environment? So I really like the idea that you brought in the uncertainty. And it's a very, very important aspect of leadership, that how do you behave in an uncertain or respond to an uncertain environment? And how do you encourage that behavior across the organization, across the ladder, right? I think in pandemic, we have learned a lot that in terms of empowerment and then empowerment in the context of uncertainty, right? And then also see that how people are behaving. You have to have right mechanism to provide that support, that if certain individuals or teams are needing support because of uncertainty or ambiguity, not able to take a decision to call, and what's your support mechanism to really lift them up, right? And certain things you need to be ready for taking that call and taking decisions, and if otherwise it wouldn't have come to your table. That's what I would say.
That's important for building a team, because that's exactly when the leader can come across as a humble person, asking for advice from his or her team members and working together, facing that uncertainty together, sharing the heat of the uncertainty and making mistakes together, and dealing with the consequences of that, because trust takes time to be built. And that's the perfect time for any organization to practice trust, because the opposite of trust is micromanagement.
Yeah. So you talked about certain areas or certain type of initiatives that we don't want to take on, or companies. We try to distance ourselves from toxic environment. And I think everybody should try to distance themselves from either it's an employee or it's a consultant, it's a work environment. The toxic environment needs to be avoided. Now, what a leader can do for that, it's if the leader is in charge, then I would say that really get to the bottom of it. What's causing the toxic? Is it cultural part of it? Is it few individuals who have been really getting that freedom to do or create that
recognition?
Yeah. So solve it. I mean that, and fixing a toxic environment is a really what you call test for leadership. Right, great test for leadership, and it may take time, it may take tough calls, but it's a great test, big test.
Yes, because it's what you tolerate that grows. And remember, guys, if you want to come across as a nice person in all situations, you may be supporting bad behavior. Being tough in certain situations, being firm can limit and minimize the toxicity in the entire society. But the idea of being nice and being a good person, being a good guy, being a good girl may cause more issues that you can possibly imagine.
Absolutely.
That's of course, and Dr. Lynn, standing up for your team. And how is your team doing right now? Because we are going through this third stay-at-home announcement. How do you feel as a leader yourself today?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to keep ourselves safe together. We have regular communication. We have daily morning and then evening, check-ins, and not just with me, but also among the team members. There are constant in touch. We believe in giving freedom. Even before pandemic, we had 2 days of work from home, so there is, I would say, the trust is inherent in our small team, that because it's a creative process. You work on difficult problems, complex problem. You try to find out a simple solution out of it, and it's not necessarily always in the office environment. You don't know when you will have that aha moment and get the right solution, right? So that has been part of our way of work and way of arrangement. So that has been actually paying off even in pandemic situation. However, I would say that because of the restrictions, there has been a lot of limitations in our face-to-face conversations, and there's many times that energy level is kind of low, which we need to uplift through some maybe team lunch, Uber delivery, and then have lunch together. We did have one team member in Vancouver, and then we had a late lunch here in Toronto, so so that we have some time, close time. So it was nice. And then we do have what you call some kind of team bonding exercise. Even though the team is small, but those bonding exercise helps with knowing the team members more and really going through what's happening in the mind. So create an environment, not every day, create an environment to be able to share something outside the work, and about the personality, their belief, their worries, their concerns, and to the extent they want to share, right? And that's what we try to do. So team is, keeping up well. My reflection goes back to that leadership and uncertainty, and what we call global operating model, command and control center. In supply chain, control center has been typical work, or what you call capability that a lot of supply chain companies established long time back with their planning and execution. So then, and then in energy industry, they are a remote monitoring center, and then it's like a control center. In supply chain, you can call it supply chain control tower. In energy, you can say that it's my remote operation center, that sort of thing. What I have, my reflection has been is that we didn't really learn fast enough with the uncertainty that came in, and that is taking a lot of toll for many organizations, and I cannot point out any particular industry or so, but however, what I have learned is that the organizations that were doing the right things, like trust, building that safe environment, empowerment, and decision making, providing a guide so that people can take their own decision. You don't command and control every little thing, but you will still have a control center. You'll still have there's a balance of those organizations that were doing those stuff, like creating that environment in pre-pandemic. They have done well, even in the pandemic situations, and then they have progressed well. The organizations that didn't do well, either they have gone even further down, because they couldn't really cope up with the challenges or need of the time in terms of leadership and the behavioral aspects of it. But some realized and changed. So some organizations, I would say that they really took that as a pivotal opportunity and then transformed themselves. But many of them actually, kept on going down because it wasn't there. It's completely total foreign language for them to be able to really handle that uncertainty and empower people at the same time.
Yes, they actually do the things that they probably used to do before with even more passion. Things that didn't work. I understand that a huge part of the transformation, of the change, is self-awareness, which is the foundation of emotional intelligence. So, of course, if your organization and your clients are going through the first thing, that we need to support the self-awareness, and knowing that for some people it's a new thing to exercise, being supportive, creating safe environment as consultants, and of course, guys, safe and trust are probably key words in these challenging times. And for any team, even if you're not measuring it, it doesn't mean that it is not important.
Exactly. That's a great point. I mean, self-awareness, right? So when we did that talent assessment, to identify hidden talents in the organization that will be really important. Maybe they will champion future change initiatives, or at a small scale or a larger scale, whatever it is, right? Depending on the program design. So we do have a process of identifying those talents and even the known talents. So the questionnaire that we use, it's really self-evaluation, and it's very interesting to see how people are self-aware, right? Because you're kind of looking at the mirror and then filling out the question, right? I'm between 1 to 5, et cetera, et cetera. So it is, we are able to identify potential, of course, for hidden talents, potential talents, that we are also able to identify the talents, the stars that are already known, they're stars, people are known. And we are also able to identify the kind of assumed stars, but that they're not necessarily the right stars, or not necessarily the right talent, and they can potentially create the toxic environment and in the organization. So it's all through this questionnaire and how they're responding. And then, you see that, okay, this question, because the question triggers the thought, and the question, how you're answering it, it would really, reflect your thought process and your, to some extent, your biasness also, right? And that's really, really interesting. And we do spend a lot of time because it's not automatically done. The answers are not always automatically, analyzed and given a dashboard. There are certain questions that we will spend, we will pay attention to how did they answer. And even in some cases, we'll reach out to those individuals and how did you interpret those questions and what was your answer like? Mm-hmm. What was your thought process?
Yeah. And on the surface, some organizations and hiring managers ask the question about your weaknesses to sort of see the self-awareness. And people who ask themselves honest questions on a daily basis, they usually feel more confident sharing their weakness and action plan that they have in mind to become better professionals. I think that's, but also it is also the hardest question to answer. Because yes, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to say something that will close this door for you, but at the same time, you don't want to come across as someone who doesn't have any flaws, right? So
absolutely, and this is an interesting part. I mean, the way one can pose that question or the design of the conversation. No, this topic has been coming up in our projects quite often, that you can have an agenda for the meeting. You can have structured component and contents. But the outcome of that session, to a great degree, depends on the way we design the conversation. Mm-hmm. Right. So
the trust and
yes, so okay, yes. So first question, when you ask, people may not respond. Okay, they may be taken aback. Okay, hold on a second. They might be, they might be nervous or not willing to say anything. Then you reframe that question, or you probe someone that you must be having something there. Why don't you share your thing? So you create that environment, you navigate through that conversation and find it out, and then follow through, right? So the conversation design is extremely important, and how do we play in that environment? It's extremely, extremely important. That's where the emotional intelligence becomes the big part of it. So the point of weaknesses, why it is important, we need to understand that. A person can try to be good at everything. Maybe if somebody is given time, infinite amount of time, infinite amount of energy, and maybe they can be good at everything, but we are all living in this world for a finite time. Let's be right. We are all living in this world for a finite time. And then when we work together, that's also quite finite time, right? So there is definitely something that we want to be conscious of, where my most value will come in, where my most natural strength will come in. So if people are defensive in talking about weaknesses, there is another way of talking about, okay, what's your unique strength? What's your natural strength? Strength can be achieved through training and professional training, or certain hours of active involvement on certain things, and I can be very good at it. But that may not be my natural strength all the time, right? If for an exam, even if I'm not good or I don't like physics, I may train myself on physics and get through it and score 100%, yes. Right? But physics may not be my natural way of thinking, right? So my thought process, what's my natural, that becomes very, very important. Right? In the long course, a long journey, what one needs to really focus on, that what's my true strength, natural strength, that automatically or unconsciously I go in that path, right? That realization is extremely important.
And a larger organization, bigger organization has got more freedom, more opportunity to put those talents into the right place. The next is coming, that weakness. So those natural strengths, when you're trying to leverage, of course, I will have certain areas that are my blind spot, or I don't want to really spend. And if I need to do it, I will do it, but maybe I won't be able to do it in a consistent manner for a prolonged amount of time. Maybe somebody else wants to do it, right? So being able to share that with the team really it's very important for high performing team. Because for once or twice I can get involved in so those things that are not my natural strength. But if I am really doing that repeatedly or for a longer time, then I'm actually causing damage to myself. Yes. Then you're, yes, right? So in a high-performing team, they will always look for a complementary skill. Okay, who is good at this? Okay, who is good at these aspects so that they can really complement each other and be a very, very powerful pair, right? A very strong pair. Weaknesses, if they are positioned in that way, then it's very, very important. People say that, oh, you share your vulnerability, et cetera, et cetera. I share my weaknesses upfront, not necessarily to say that, okay, don't give me that task, or no, I won't be able to do that. And I'm trying hard to improve that area, right? I share my weaknesses because please know that this is my weakness, okay? To my team also, and beware, I will raise the flag when I need help, so you have to jump in, right? You got to jump in when I'm in that moment, or maybe even further, you may watch, right? Hey, that's where the true bonding comes in, right? I know that Alauddin is weak. We know that Alauddin is weak in these areas. Maybe he's struggling in that space, or maybe he's got stuck in that space, right? Especially in remote environment. That sense is very important. How do you get that? It's truly the team bonding. And because you know your team member, partner so much that you know in what process that person is going through, even though you don't necessarily talk about, it's not sixth sense and all. One of my customers told me that if you're truly listening, you can do that.
Yes, that's true. And you know what, like if someone's weakness is public speaking, for example, and this person is doing a presentation in front of executives, you know what they're going through. You're sitting next to them. You maybe are helping them with the slides, or maybe you are the one who is asking the first question. So definitely sharing weaknesses is as important as sharing strengths. And when you ask as a hiring manager, and if you ask that question about weakness, keep in mind that you are not here to put this person in a disadvantaged position. You are to explore their personality. And before you ask that question, make sure that there is trust and the conversation is built in a way that this person feels safe sharing his or her vulnerability with you.
Yeah, so in that regard, when I used to hire a lot of people in my previous career in large organizations in Accenture and Tata, we had a process of going through psychology or emotional intelligence test, and at least we would know what we are getting into, right? So that process, I think it helps, even though it may you may look like you may think that the report that is coming is kind of typical, or it has got a standard template, etc. But it gives you a range that this is the understanding, plus minus how good that person would be in terms of change adaptation, how good that person would be in terms of risk taking, etc., etc. So there are multiple things that I used to do that a lot. And when I were hiring people, even today, when we hire people, we used to meet more than once. It's not one interview. Much like our customers like to meet us more than once, number of times to understand. We would love to meet our customer a number of times before we engage in the project, right? It's understanding both sides, thought process, way of work, good fit, et cetera, right? So those things are very important, even when a person is taking an important career decision.
That's true. And of course, that's every decision that's related to career, especially right now. People think about safety and job security, predictability. They are more cautious about what industries they're getting into. So meeting more than once and being open to have a detailed conversation and share the weaknesses, sharing the challenges that the company is going through, definitely will help in decision-making process for both sides. That's, I think.
Yeah. In this regard, I mean, it's to your first question on change management and they're kind of related. The change is enjoyable when it is about future. The future is positive. There could be uncertainty. Of course, there is uncertainty, but the possibilities that we're looking for, they're exciting. The possibilities that we are talking about, they're exciting. And that's where the first point that I made at the beginning is the purpose and vision, right? Where are we trying to go? And what does it look like? Can you detail it? Can you create a vivid picture of it? The picture may change after a certain time, but can you really paint it? Or can you give enough energy to paint it? That's very, very important. And same thing I would say when you are trying to hire someone, you're hiring someone to build a high-performing team. Okay? And then that high-performing team that you're trying to build, it cannot be met by just talking about today, what you want, what skills you are looking for, and does it match or not. You need to talk about stress that thought towards future. Maybe not all of them are known, but table that discussion and put it across. That's where you will see the true potential of partnership or true potential of having somebody in your team and to grow together as a high-performance team. Because today, it is going to meet the need, but it is not necessarily going to create a path forward, an exciting journey.
Yes, it's very important to keep that in mind. Even when organizations sometimes are going through survival mode, still feeling that future may not necessarily be able to visualize exactly what it's going to look like, but having a feeling that there is another chapter coming up after this one is done, and sharing that enthusiasm with the team. Yes, being brave, basically.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Alauddin, for your time today. I'm sure we will meet again. And if our audience has questions, guys, please reach out to Dr. Alauddin Ahmed directly on LinkedIn, and I will post the link to our previous conversation in the comments section on YouTube. So thank you
very much.